Alright guys, let's get into it. The best and worst kits of 2018. Actually this year I'm going to do a little bit differently. In the past I've talked about best and worst kits. This time I'm just going to talk about best kits of 2018 because there was really only like a couple really stinkers this year that I would call kind of bad kits. For the most part though, there were a lot of just kind of down the road, middle average, kind of I would say mediocre kits, but not really all that many really bad ones. But there were a lot of great ones that I want to talk about, and so basically what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about a couple of bad ones, a bunch of good ones, and actually there was a lot of really great P-Bandai kits as well, and I feel like although nobody really likes P-Bandai, they deserve to be talked about a little bit just because there were some really great kits released that were P-Bandai kits this year. And then at the end I do want to talk about just some honorable mentions as well. Those are ones that just I personally really enjoyed, so they're not like really the best kits according to the criteria that I'm using here, but they're kits that were really good and that I enjoyed a lot. So if you guys are interested in just knowing some of my own like kind of personal picks, favorites of the year, then stay around to the end of the video as well to watch that part as well. But let's just get into it and we'll talk about a couple of the bad ones first, just to give you an idea of what I'm looking at in terms of criteria. If you watch any of my reviews, it's just kind of the same thing that I usually go for. So in terms of like the articulation and posing options, is it able to pull off some nice poses and things? That's always important if you're interested in displaying your kits in certain poses. And then how is the overall construction of the kit in terms of, does it have a whole bunch of seam lines or anything like that? Is the color or part separation nicely handled? Does it have a lot of surface detail on it to really make it look nice? I also take into consideration whether the kit is completely new or something that is recycled of an old kit. Now obviously a lot of the Build Fighters, Build Divers kits are all recycled old kits for the most part, but a lot of them do bring a lot of new stuff to the table, so you just kind of have to weigh that out. If it's something that is kind of mostly old and just like a few new parts in there, then I wouldn't really rate it quite as high as one of the best kits of the year. While it might still be a good kit, it just doesn't quite have the same impression as something that's completely new and surprising and exciting to check out if you're looking for like the best kits of the year. And then the last couple things is just the weapons and accessories. Does it come with a good amount of those, or at least what you would want out of a kit like that? Sometimes it only has a couple, but maybe that's all you really need for a specific kit. For example, the Gyan, you'd want the sword and the shield, and that's kind of all the Gyan really has, so you wouldn't really expect too much more than that. So you kind of have to be realistic in that sense. And then the last thing is just the overall look and proportions. So like the colors, the proportions, everything, it doesn't look weird. The colors are all molded right as far as how it is out of the box anyway. Now obviously not everyone's going to have the same criteria when judging their best and worst kits, just because some people may not care at all about seam lines or colors or anything like that, just because they're going to modify the kits or paint them or whatever. So that's not going to be the same criteria for everyone, but just take into consideration whatever matters to you, whether you want to judge the kit as something that is something you want to buy or not. Now the first on the list of the worst kits of the year is the HG Build Fighters Build Strike Galaxy Cosmos. Now I will put a little asterisk next to this in that I didn't actually build it, but it just looked so awful that I just totally stayed away from it. The basic construction in terms of like the articulation of the joints and everything like that, I'm sure is fine, but it just looks like such a lazy attempt on Bandai's part, kind of like the Scramble Gundam that came out last year, where it just looks really cheap and they didn't really put much effort into it. The accessories are like just super lazy looking. So I just totally stayed away from this, and I feel like a lot of people did as well. I don't really feel like this probably was one of Bandai's best selling kits by a long shot. So if you did build it and you had a different perception of the kit, let me know in the comment section down below, but I just totally stayed away from this because I knew it was going to be one of the worst ones of the year. Next one is the entire HG Build Custom line for all of last year. All the HG Build Custom option parts that seemed to come out last year just seemed to be one completely ugly, uninteresting thing after another. Again, this is a little bit of my personal opinion on that one. But they just looked like all just stuff that Bandai was just crapping out that didn't really look like it really fit with a lot of the kits that they were putting out, and it just didn't really seem like this was anything that a lot of people seemed to really get excited about last year. So just to run through a few of them here, stuff that came out last year. Of course, the Galaxy Booster, that just looked like a bunch of fins of plot plate strapped onto the back of. What are we going to plug that onto the back of? The Changeling Rifle, again, interesting idea, but just the whole handle and everything, the way that they made it was just so weird and just kind of awkward, uninteresting. The Tilt Rotor Pack, another one that was really cool, and I feel like this is probably one of the best ones from last year just because it's something that you could be so unique. But then you have things like the Spinning Blaster, the Binder Gun, the Machine Rider, the Sky High Wings, that were all just kind of like very meh. When we have other stuff that came out in the Build Custom line and before that was a little bit more exciting, I felt like a lot of the stuff that came out last year was just very uninteresting. Next we have the HG Ver's Galbaldy Rebake. Now this is one I really wanted to like because it's so interesting in terms of its proportions, so I did really like that, and the fact that it's based off of the HGUC Galbaldy Beta, which was a really good kit. I had high expectations for it, but there was just a couple things that really killed it for this kit. Most importantly was the posability for it, with the inability for it to stand in any sort of like powerful looking pose. That just really made it a big disappointment in my opinion. And the last one here is another one that I completely stayed away from, is the HG Ver's Jaqen Blastmaster. It was just looked so awful. The colors that Bandai chose for this, I'm not really sure what they were thinking. I know they wanted something kind of loud or something maybe, but it just didn't really work. And then like the X style backpack on it being white, and the whole rest of the kit is also orange and red. It just didn't really seem to match up. It definitely looked like something tacked onto the back, and then all of the different like 00 or Age style like cannons all over it, including on like the bottom of the feet and everything, also just looked like a very strange mix of design aesthetics that didn't really go together very well. So it just feels like another one that they just kind of crapped out, and it didn't really have as much love or thought put into it as other designs that came out last year. So I just completely stayed away from that one as well. But also just heard from other reviews and everything that it was just a little bit disappointing in my kit anyway. So that is pretty much it for the bad kits of last year. And as you can tell, a lot of those that I mentioned are not like really super bad. They're just things that had points to them that I just felt were just disappointing, and just didn't feel like Bandai really put that much effort into them. So even with that, so as you can see, like those were the worst ones that I could pick out of all last year, which were not like super garbage. So that means that the year was pretty good. So let's go ahead and then just talk about some of the best kits of last year. And the first one that I want to talk about is the HGUC Ground Gundam. Now this one is recycled, it does recycle a lot of parts from the Ground Gym, which came out last year, but there is quite a lot new to it as well, and it's definitely a huge improvement over the old HGUC Ground Gundam. And if it's a design that you really do like, or if you're a really big fan of the series, or you want to get multiple Ground Gundam kits as well as like the Ground GM, or if you want to kind of build a team of them, I would really recommend the P-Bandai set that comes with the parachute pack, because that set comes with so much more in it. It's really a nice set. It's P-Bandai, so it's going to cost you a little bit more. But if you want to build a team of a few Gundams, I would definitely recommend that, because you get a lot of really great accessories in that, and just makes for a really good set. So this kit in general, great kits, the articulation, the posing options, all of the different weapons and accessory options for this make this a really fun kit. And if you want to build a few of them, I think you're going to really enjoy it. Next one is the SD Cross Silhouette Nightingale. Now the SD Cross Silhouette line in general, I kind of want to say is like kind of one of the best kits to come out last year. But I picked out the Nightingale especially because the only other kit version of the Nightingale that we have really is the giant RE100 kit, which is very big and very expensive. So I feel like a lot of people maybe don't have the money or don't have the space to display something that big. So this SD Cross Silhouette version I feel like is a really good replacement for that, for people who like the Nightingale design, want to have a kit of it, but don't really have that much money or that much space to spare. So that's why I feel like this SD Cross Silhouette version was a really nice kit for that. Whereas things like the Gundam, the Zaku, the Zeta Gundam, we have plenty of other kits of those. So if you're a really big fan of the design, you have kind of a lot to choose from. While the SD Cross Silhouette versions of those were also nice as well. The SD Cross Silhouette line in general, though, is just a really nice step, I think, for the SD kits. They tried the SDX standard line, and that was just kind of a flop. Most people didn't like that at all. I'm not sure how well it fared in Japan, but I know for a lot of the people in our English-speaking Gunpla community, it wasn't really well received. But the SD Cross Silhouette line, I think, is a much better experiment on Bandai's part, and they're a lot more fun to work with, and much better constructed, and just really nice kits in general. If you are a fan of SD kits and you haven't built any of the SD Cross Silhouette kits, I would definitely recommend picking one up. And next, the Masquerade Gundam F91 version 2.0. Now this one is a version 2.0 that a lot of people said was not really that much more of an improvement over the 1.0. I didn't build the 1.0, so I can't really compare it, but I feel like if you were like me, or if you've never built the original 1.0, then you could also consider this as probably one of the best kits of the year, because it is a really, really nice kit. Now how much better it is than the original, I don't really know, but this one is on its own really, really nice, and it's not recycling any of the parts from the old kit anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Really nice construction, really solid, a lot of really nice tiny parts in there, so the color separation, the part separation on it is really, really good. Detail on it, it's not packed with detail, but it does have a lot of nice detail in certain areas. The LED gimmick though was a little bit disappointing, as like from the front you really can't see the LED light much at all unless you're in like a pitch black room. Looks nice from the back, but most people aren't going to display their kits from the back, unfortunately. And the LED unit for it costs an extra like 20 bucks onto the price of the kit, so that is disappointing. It did come with the stand though, so the stand is nice. The stand doesn't really give you a whole lot of posing options because it's not articulated at all. But overall, the Masquerade F91 version 2.0 kit was a lot of fun, and for being someone who didn't like the F91 design before at all, to enjoy that kit and like start to enjoy the design a lot more because of that kit, and I think that says a lot. Next we have, of course, the HG Leo. The Leo is such a great kit just because it's very simple, it's very cheap, and it's an HG Leo, something we've been waiting for such a long time. I kept saying last year, like 2018 was the year that Bandai really delivered a lot of kits that we had been waiting for so long and or didn't think we were ever going to get kits of, and they all came out last year, a whole bunch of them, so it was really great. The Leo was one of them. Still hoping that we might get a Masquerade Leo at some point. I think it's very possible, but who knows. It took them this long to make the HG, so I don't know, we'll just have to wait and see. And then we had the different variations of the Leo, the Space Leo, the Flight Type. Also really great versions of that if you want more accessories or different versions of that. Again, if this is something that you want to build multiples of, you can very easily buy a lot of them and build them and not have to spend too much money and have a lot of fun doing it. Next up is the Masquerade Jegan. Now, this one I feel like is just a really good, solid Masquerade for people who are fans of the Jegan, or you just want a nice simple Masquerade to work on customizing, or if you want to make your first step into Masquerades from maybe if you've just built a few high grades and you're not sure you really want to take on something a little more complicated. The Jegan as a Masquerade is relatively simple. It's a very easy to paint kit too if you want to get it into trying painting a Masquerade. It's very simple in construction, doesn't really have anything in the way of like seam lines or anything on it, just the color separation, everything on it. Not very detailed though. The inner frame is kind of like half and half. It's got some nice detail on there. It's not super detailed inner frame. It's relatively simple in its construction. It's a very easy kit to put together, a very quick kit to put together, but just simple, solid, but that makes for a good grunt suit, I think. And it's also relatively cheap as well. It's on the cheaper end for master grades, so that's good as well. It's another one, I think, if you wanted to buy multiple versions, you could buy those, multiples of the kit and make different versions. You could do that by painting them in different colors or different weapons or things like that. Now, what it comes with is pretty minimal, but we are seeing more and more P-Bandai versions, I think, going to be coming out in the next year or so. We only have one on the books at the moment, but I'm sure it's the first of many. Next, of course, is the real grade Sazabi, probably the best, if not definitely one of the best real grades to come out to date. A lot of people were really blown away by this kit, and I think if you haven't built it, you definitely need to. This is one that I would say, and I've hardly ever say this, but this is one of those kits that I think you definitely do need to build. Now, it's definitely the most expensive. I think it's probably still the most expensive of the real grade kits. I'd have to go back, I'd have to check, but it's an expensive real grade kit for sure, but definitely not as expensive as the master grade. A lot of people, of course, were asking what's better, the real grade or the master grade. I think it's still, both are really great for different reasons. One is more expensive, the other one's much more articulated and posable, much more, if you want to do more posing and stuff with the kit, get the real grade. If you want just a nice, big, expensive centerpiece for your collection to just be standing there and looking amazing, then the master grade is definitely better for that. But anyway, the real grade Sazabi just was so amazing. It's super solid, very big, bulky, tons of detail. Tons of parts in there. The weapons and accessories for it are great. The only small little gripe that I really had with it was that it didn't have a separate piece for the backside of the shield. So that means if you want to paint that part like on the back of the shield in gray or whatever, you're going to have to mask that, where it really would have been nice if that was a separate part. That just makes it much easier to paint. So that was kind of the really only thing that I had negative to say about that kit. Otherwise, very, very good, very solid kit. Next we have the HG Build Divers Gundam 00 Sky. This is the only Build Divers kit that I had on the best list, just because I felt like this kit was really solid. Now of course it does utilize a lot of parts from the HG00 Gundam, which is pretty old, but also still a very nice kit. Just in terms of its overall build and price, it's very cheaply priced, and this one as well, also pretty nicely priced, and just the build quality is really nice. All the new parts for it are really good. This has a really nice range of weapons, kind of accessories for it. It has the big sword, it has the big cannon, has the rifle, and it has the different option parts. If you want to get the higher than sky phase version of that, you get the stand included, as well as the extra effect parts for that. So this was just a really nice solid kit with a lot of different options for it. So if you like to have a kind of simple HG kit that you can really play around with, do a lot of posing with and things like that, change up the pose a lot, this is definitely one I would definitely recommend. Next up is the FigureRise Standard Diver Nami. This is definitely by far and away Bandai's best robot girl kit that they've made by far. Definitely better than all the Fuminas and all of that other stuff. It's really great, it's really solid. The articulation is good, the weapons, accessories for it are really nice, and also really interesting just because they were all based on like hobby tools, so that was really fun as well. It has a couple option parts in it finally. We had a couple options for the face and also the hair, so that was really good. So this one is just definitely the best of those kits. So if you're looking for something this kind of like mecha girl musume kit, and you don't want to spend as much maybe for one of the Kotobukiya kits, you want something a little bit cheaper, you just want to try it out, then this one is a really good option. I think though if you do want to spend a little bit more, or if you're willing to spend a little bit more, I think the Kotobukiya kits are probably a little bit nicer in certain ways, but this one is definitely a really good, solid kit as well. And last couple things here are HGUC. We have the HGUC Moon Gundam, of course. Everyone loves the Moon Gundam. Everyone's raving about the Moon Gundam. It's the greatest kit ever. Yeah, probably. It is a really good kit. It's a super nice HG kit. It's big. It's got a lot of detail. The articulation and like the construction of it is really, really nice. Like the gimmicks of it are really cool, with the cycle plates on the back and all the stuff you can do with those. So there's a lot to do with this kit, and it's just a really, really nice kit. It's going to be a little bit more expensive, coming at 3,000 yen for that. That's more expensive than a lot of real grade kits, but there is a lot of plastic in this kit. Now, do I think it is the be-all end-all of HG kits and you absolutely have to buy it? No, if there was one kit on this list that I think you have to buy, it's the real grade Sazabi. It's not this one. The Moon Gundam, if you like the design, then definitely buy it. If you're not like super convinced by the design, then you know, you don't have to get it. It's really nice, but I think it's just going to be a precursor to more kits that we're going to see down the line that are also going to be of similar quality. So if you're not too hyped on this one, then maybe just save your money for something else. I'm sure we'll get other HG kits in the near future that will also be really, really nice, like the Moon Gundam. But the Moon Gundam is really a good kit if you are a fan of the design. The last one then is going to be the HGUC Sinanju Stein, of course. Now this is one that I didn't think we were ever going to get. I should say narrative version. I do think that probably in the future we'll get probably a P-Bandai release of this with the unicorn version, but anyway. The narrative version is really, really good. It's got really super solid construction. Not as detailed as the Moon Gundam, but I feel like it is still really nice. Now this does use some parts from the HGUC Sinanju, but it doesn't hinder the kit in any way, I don't feel like. Because the HGUC Sinanju is pretty old, it could have been hindered by the use of some of those parts, but I don't think that it was really in any way, so that is good. The weapons and accessories for it are nice. The shield and the rifle do work really well. The high beam rifle is really big and heavy, even with the bazooka attached onto it, which is really cool, but it can still hold it, so that's great. The posability on it is fantastic. The colors, some people might find a little bit boring just because it's just kind of a light gray color for the most part, but overall very good. If you don't know how to, or you haven't had any experience trying any like a reverse wash to paint in the sleeves parts, it's a good opportunity to try that out because it's a relatively simple process to do, and it works a lot better than using stickers. So if you don't want to use the stickers for that and you want to try painting a reverse wash, it's a good opportunity to try that out. But it's just a fantastic kit. Personally, between that and the Moon Gundam, I prefer the Sinanju Stein just because I like the design of the Sinanju Stein more. So if you were kind of between the two of them, I think both of them are fantastic kits. Get whichever one is the design that you prefer more, or both if you like both of them, but the Sinanju Stein is definitely a really fantastic kit. And with that, I want to go down the line and talk about a handful of P-Bandai kits that were really awesome that came out this year. Now again, P-Bandai kits are unfortunate that they're P-Bandai, that they're going to be a little bit more harder to get or expensive to get, but these were really great kits that I feel like are they're worth mentioning in case any of you guys were wanting to get any of these. They have my official recommendations, so let's go through some of these. We have the P-Bandai Master Grade Uma Lightning's High Mobility Type Gelgoog. Fantastic kit. The Master Grade 2.0 Gelgoog, already a fantastic kit. This one adding a whole bunch of new parts for that, as well as some really awesome new weapons for that as well, and waterside decals for it, and so all of that makes for a really nice Master Grade Gelgoog to add to your collection if you're into like MSV kind of stuff. P-Bandai HG The Origin Heavy Gundam, probably the best HG The Origin kit to come out today, I would say. Arguably one of the best for sure. And it's just a shame that it came out as a P-Bandai kit. They did have the other white version of that also came out as a P-Bandai kit, but if you're a fan of the Heavy Gundam design or a fan of the HG The Origin kits in general, definitely try to pick one of these up, one of the two. They're really good. The Gundam local type and the different versions of that, like the FSD, all of those were good. This one is better, so definitely check it out if you're a fan of that stuff. P-Bandai HGUC Gouf Flight Type, also another one that I didn't expect we were ever going to get. It came out, we were hoping that it was going to come out as a standard release. Unfortunately, it came out as P-Bandai, but it's so much better than the old 1/44 scale HG version that came out in the old 8th MS Team HG line. This new version is definitely hands down much better. So if you're thinking, well, it's too expensive, I think I'll just get the old version, just don't. Just spend the extra money to get the P-Bandai version. It's so much better. It's a fantastic kit. It's really a shame that it didn't come out is just a standard HGUC release. And this one too, the P-Bandai HGUC Efreet Nacht. The Efreet Schneid was the one that came out as a standard release. The other versions came out as P-Bandai. The HGUC Efreet Nacht, though, was really fantastic. This one as well, the weapons, accessories on it are great. The details on it, the molding on it, everything is fantastic. The colors are fantastic. It's such a good kit. I really liked this kit a lot. This was probably one of my favorite, personally one of my favorite kits of the year from last year. I before was not really too into the design of the Efreet Nacht. I liked other versions of the Efreet more, but this kit really convinced me that the Nacht is now my favorite version of the Efreet. Next one, of course, we have to include the P-Bandai HGUC Woundwort. This is one of those that is a completely new kit that came out as a P-Bandai kit. I think this is probably the only one ever that I can think of. I'd have to go back and check, but I think obviously most P-Bandai kits are variants of other kits, so they'll be at least partially old or partially new. The Woundwort, though, however, is completely new, so it really sucked that it came out as a P-Bandai kit, but it just seems like for the time being, Bandai is going to keep all of their Advance of Zeta stuff as premium Bandai items, so that is unfortunate. But the Woundwort definitely is worth the price if you're an Advance of Zeta fan. I've got 3 of them just because it's such a cool kit and I'm such a big fan of the Advance of Zeta stuff. I'm still hoping that we might see other different parts sets or different variations of that coming out in the future. I kind of doubt it. It doesn't really seem like Bandai is too interested in going too far deep into all the different Advance of Zeta variants and everything. They're just kind of sticking with like the main ones. So I don't think we're going to see any variants of this. But the Woundwort as it is on its own, really great kit. The transformation is really cool, even though it's a really weird mobile armor mode, but it's still a really cool transformation for that. And yeah, just a really fun, really cool kit. Next we have the P-Bandai Master Grade Stormbringer. Now I haven't quite yet built this, it's over here behind me. I'm going to be building it very soon. I have built the Gym Dominance, which is kind of very similar. It shares a lot of parts. I know a lot of people thought the Gym Dominance was really amazing. Personally, the Gym Dominance was really cool, but after building the Gym Sniper 2, the Gym Sniper Custom, the Gym Command, and different versions of the Gym for over the past year and a half or so, I was a little bit gymmed out from building that same kind of Master Grade 2.0 Gym, different custom versions of that over and over again. Now I know the Stormbringer is also basically using a lot of the same kit, of course, but I feel like the Stormbringer just brings so much more to the table in terms of the design and the weapons and things like that for it. It just is such a more cool design, I think, whereas the Gym Dominance it was just a little bit played out with just the different versions of the Gym that had come out recently. But the Gym Dominance, also a really good kit. The Stormbringer, though, I think probably better, and just that it's just so cool. I briefly mentioned these before, but I just want to mention again the P-Bandai HG Leo Space Type or Leo Flight Type, either of those being variants of the Leo kit as really good P-Bandai kits. I really loved the HG Leo Space Type, such a good kit. The Leo was fine, you know, I'd said it was one of the best kits of last year, I definitely agree with that, but the Leo Space Type definitely better, just because it had more parts and weapons and accessories that came with that, including the space backpack and all of that. So I think the Space Type is just a super fantastic kit, definitely worth picking up. Even though it's P-Bandai, it still shouldn't cost you all that much, so if you can, definitely pick up 1 or 2 or 3 of those. And so that is it for all of like the best of the best of the best stuff and the best P-Bandai stuff. Now I just want to wrap up the video by just quickly mentioning a few of just some of my personal favorite stuff that came out last year that I think you can give or take. If you are like me and you really like the design of this stuff, then pick up the kit, but this is stuff that I feel like is probably not some of the best kits that came out last year. Some of my personal favorites, some of the stuff that I was really glad that came out last year. We have, of course, the Masquerade Hazel and the Masquerade Hazel Custom, the Advanced Hazel, as well as the Masquerade G-Parts Hrududu part set. I'm just kind of grouping all that stuff together as stuff that I was so glad it came out last year. It's not that detailed, and it's using the just Masquerade 2.0 Gundam Mark II frame, but kind of obviously, and a lot of parts from that kit, but I feel like it is really nice. Now, of course, a lot of people complain about the lack of detail, saying that it basically just looks the same as the HG, just larger, which I would kind of agree with, but also it's still just really cool that it's a Masquerade Hazel, so I can't really complain too much, and if you want to add more detail, you can always, of course, go in and add that in yourself. I'm just really happy that we got a Masquerade Hazel out, as well as the Hrududu part set is something that I definitely wouldn't have expected. The fact that they made that was also really cool as well, so those parts also add a lot to the kit. It's not super stable, but as long as you don't try to do anything too crazy with it, having the G parts on there is also really cool. Another one is the P-Bandai HGUC EWAC Jegan. We've had tons of different versions of the HG Jegan come out as standard release kits, and as even more so as P-Bandai kits. This one I feel like is one of my favorite ones just because of how unique it is. The EWAC Jegan is just such a really cool, unique design. We don't see a whole lot of EWAC kits come out. Of course, we have the EWAC Zack that came out like 2009, I think. And I think that's the only one that's like a standard release kit. There's resin kits of other different ones, especially different EWAC designs from Advanced Zeta. There's resin kits of those. But as far as anything that Bandai's ever put out, this version of the Jegan was really, really cool, and it doesn't really do a whole lot just because of its design, but it's just such a cool design. And this one's a little bit controversial, but the Masquerade Deep Striker, this is another kit that I just didn't think was ever going to happen, so just really excited that it actually did get made, because I love the design of the Deep Striker. I feel like a lot of the hatred for this kit is pretty misplaced, and just that I feel like people didn't really maybe manage their expectations correctly for this. I don't really know, or I don't really quite understand the complaint about like the lack of articulation or anything of this kit, just because of the fact that I don't really know what people maybe were expecting the kit to do. Some like weird karate moves or dance moves or something, considering that it's just basically a mobile armor. So the arms move a little bit, and that's pretty much all it really needs to do for the most part. I will agree with the lack of color separation, the part separation, most especially on the cannon. On the cannon parts, definitely I think could have been broken up because there's a lot of just like really big parts put together. So I think the part separation could have been a lot better, especially on the cannon there. But according to what I've heard, this kit was originally supposed to be a P-Bandai release, and so that would definitely explain why the kit maybe is not as nice as what we would normally expect for a Masquerade kit. Also the price is very high. I think that is also related to the fact that it was originally slated to be a premium Bandai kit. Bandai, I think, maybe put more into it, expecting that they were going to be getting more profit from that being a P-Bandai release, but releasing as a standard release means that Bandai doesn't see as much of that profit back to them. So that means that they had to maybe make the price a little bit higher in order to get the profit back that they needed from the development of that kit. So anyway, the development and production of that kit. So I feel like this is probably a kit that the Bandai is not going to produce very often, so because of that. So if you don't have one, I would recommend getting one if you want, when you can. It's expensive, but it's a Masquerade Deep Striker, so like if you're a fan of the design, then check it out. The new parts and the old parts issue I feel like is also kind of a non-issue because the old parts that are used don't really hinder it in any way, and the new parts do add to the design while pretty minimally. The new head is nice, the new shoulders are nice, the new chest is nice, so it's not really all that much to complain about in terms of the fact that it uses old parts. I do wish that they would have made a new beam smart gun, because the old beam smart gun, just the way that it's molded, it's going to take more work to make it look good. It has seam lines to remove, and just like the molding of it is not as nice as if they would have made a new one, I think. So that is one thing that I do wish they would have made new instead of recycling old parts for that kit. And next we have the FigureRise LABO Hoshino Fumina. Now this was something that Bandai tried. It was half kit, half figure. It was sort of build your own figure. The only thing about this was that it's limited release. They only released it once, and as far as I know, they're not going to be releasing it again. So you either got one, or now you're going to be paying a lot more to get one if you can find one. So that is unfortunate, but hopefully they do more of these in the future because they were pretty nice. This one was nice to build and paint. I've still yet to put the finishing touches on mine, but they're really cool if this is something that you're into. If you're into this kind of like figure stuff like this, it's cool to be able to build that yourself without going to so much work as building like a resin kit or something like that, which is just a little bit more work than something that's just plastic like this one. Another thing definitely worth mentioning was the Haropla, as well as the FigureRise Mechanics Haro that came out right at the end of the year as well. A lot of good love for Haro last year. I feel like the Haropla is definitely a lot more interesting than the petite guys which Bandai was putting out before. That could just be my own personal bias, of course, but Haropla, very fun, really cute, it's very cheap, so if you want something just to experiment painting on or just to do some fun customs with, they're a lot of fun, definitely worth picking up one or two. A couple other additions to the HD Build Divers line, well, I feel like most of the line was just pretty mediocre. The Impulse Gundam Arc and Impulse Gundam Lancier, I feel were a couple of really great kits from the line that felt kind of generally overlooked. I feel like it didn't really feel like a lot of people really paid too much attention to them, but I really enjoyed them quite a lot. Now, these are two of the kits that are like don't really have a whole lot in terms of new parts to them from the original Impulse. For the most part, it's pretty much mostly Impulse Gundam there, so they really only have like new parts for the head, the chest, the shoulders, side skirts, and like their weapons and things like that. So it's not a whole lot new to it. The backpacks as well. But I feel like all the parts that are new for it are really, really nice, and they're just cool, simple kits, and especially if you get them as a set. They are a little bit more on the expensive side for what they are. I feel like both of them should have been a little bit cheaper, but getting them as a set also gives you some cool mixing and matching options, or even if you don't mix and match the parts, just the two of them together make for a really cool set of HG kits, and they're nice, solid kits with some nice articulation and just cool, simple, but effective weapons, so I really enjoyed them quite a lot. And the last thing I just want to talk about is the RE line, something that I haven't talked about at all so far in this video, just because I feel like the RE releases this year were just kind of down the middle. If you like the design, you'll like the kit. If you're not really too into the design, there's not really too much there for you. A lot of people would argue the Jagd Doga should have been a Master Grade kit. I agree. Unfortunately, it wasn't a Master Grade kit. What we got was an RE. Is it bad as an RE kit? No. Is it bad as a 1/100 scale version of the Jagd Doga? I don't think so. Would it have been better as a Master Grade? It definitely would have been a lot more expensive. It definitely would have had a lot more articulation in terms of that. It also would have been heavier. A lot of people's complaint about the RE was that it's just too heavy. Well, if you had a full inner frame in there, it's only going to be heavier. So I feel like the amount of plastic and the amount of weight that would have gone into a Master Grade version of that would have been very hindering. They definitely would have had to do something to make it so that the kit didn't have weight issues. But as an RE kit, I think it's cool. Some nice detail. Some parts maybe a little bit too detailed in my personal opinion, but that was nice. The Guncannon Detector, also really nice kits. A little bit loose in some areas as well. But as far as just the overall design, the details and proportions, everything, it looks really nice. The Gun Easy, I haven't built quite yet. That's on my short list of things I'm going to be building in the next probably week or so. I'm going to be building up the Gun Easy, and but just from what I've seen so far, that also looks like a really nice kit. But again, it's just if you're into that sort of thing as well. The Vignagina, though, I would say probably it's just personal bias, and I think probably a lot of people also aren't really too into the design of the Vignagina as much, so I don't really feel like that was maybe one of the best ones to come out in the line, just because maybe not as popular. But they wanted to release something to go along with the 2.0 version of the Gundam F91, so I'm gonna see why they put it out at the time they did. it's just not, I think, as popular as a design as some of the other ones that were released. So that's it. So the RE line, yeah, just if you're into the designs of any of those, then I think you can enjoy the kits pretty well. If not, there was plenty of other good stuff to get last year that you can spend your money on instead. So that is it for the video, guys. What did you guys think? What would you say are some of the best and worst kits of last year? Do you agree with some of my choices? I'm sure a lot of you guys have differing opinions. That's all cool. This is just based on my opinion. I didn't build everything last year. I built most kits that came out last year, and a bunch of other non-Bandai stuff as well. There's a lot of cool Kotobuki kits that came out last year also, but we won't do a video on that. So that's it already for 2019. There's a lot of cool kits that we know are on the way already, and I think there's probably more cool stuff that we don't know about yet, considering 2019 is the 40th anniversary of Gundam. So I'm sure there's going to be some really cool stuff coming out later on this year. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to, as always. Let me know what you guys are looking forward to. And that is it for anything looking back to 2018. A couple of videos ago I put out my video recapping my kits from last year, my completed kits from last year, as well as talking about what some of my plans are for this year. So if you missed that video, be sure to go back and check that out. Also, my Kotobukiya contest announcement video at the beginning of the year, check that out if you're interested. The Kotobukiya contest is on until March 14th, so you've still got plenty of time to get to working on a kit for that if you want to enter into that contest. Some really cool prizes for that. So as always, guys, thank you to SDCS Gundam Store for their awesome sponsorship of my channel and all the things that they do for me. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. See you next time.